Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. Are you watching the next gen finals in Milan? I am trying to watch. I'm very curious about these young talents. We have 8 players, 2 groups. They play best of 5 sets up to 4 games. It's a very fast format. No ad scoring, electric line calling, towel racks, it says in the rules, everything to speed up play. If they hit an ace or a double fault, they only have 15 seconds to start the next point. So it's all about speed. It's something the ATP is trying to speed up the game and see if there are some rules in this format that can apply then to the ATP Tour. There's coaching allowed as well, which is the same as the trial they did on the tour this year. Rune did not play. It's quite logical because he won Paris and is now qualified as a reserve for the ATP finals, the proper ATP finals. So it makes sense that he would go there instead, to Turin instead of Milan, and play the next gen finals. He's now such a strong player, top 10 player, and the way he beat Novak in the final, he beat 5 top 10 players on the road to the title. Very impressive guy. People ask me about rackets always. He plays with the Pure Aero VS, the latest generation. There's a new one coming in January, February, but he plays with the current generation and he adds some weight to it. He replied to me in an Instagram comment that he has it around 315 grams, but he didn't seem to know the other specs. The Pure Aero VS, as I've said before, is going strong with Alcaraz and Rune, and I've seen it also around the high-level club players and the tour players and so on. So it's a very popular racket. Talking about the contenders in the next-gen finals, we have Lorenzo Musetti. 2 titles this year, very flamboyant, fun player to watch. I really like watching him if you're a fan of a Shapovalov, a Rinka style, one-handed backhands, players with big power who like to mix up the play. I think Musetti should appeal to you. Sometimes it can get a bit erratic, the same with Shapovalov. You know, there's genius and brilliance, and then there's some errors coming in and concentration lapses, and that's kind of normal for a player that plays that type of tennis. It's going to ebb and flow. But he's definitely found a new gear this year, and 23 in the world, should be pretty strong favorite for the title alongside Jack Draper, in my opinion. And he plays with the Extreme Tour, painted as a Boom Pro. According to a friend of mine who has a bunch of his personal frames, the swing weight is not massive. It's around 330 strung. So you guys who think you have to play with a 350, 360 swing weight on the tour to compete, that's not always the case. Especially with these younger guys, you see that they have usually lower swing weights. It really depends on your style of play. If you have a very explosive, fast swing, then you can't maybe play as efficiently with the 360 swing weight. So not everyone is using that. It depends really on your swing path and everything else. So fun guy to watch. He won his first match. I think he's going to win the title, but we will see. We discussed this and a lot more in our latest episode on the Tennis Nerd podcast. So check that out on Spotify, iTunes. I do it once a week together with Dennis Timar, and I also do it with some other guests. But we talk about the tour, about pickleball killing tennis, and many other things. So please check that out on your favorite podcast platform. Next guy in line, Jack Draper, also breakthrough year. And this year, no titles yet, but I think that's just a question of time. He's 40 in the world, 41 in the world. And very, very good on fast-paced courts, huge power. He's the tallest guy in the field. The field's actually not that tall. Normally, you would think that, tennis is becoming like the NBA. People are getting taller and taller, and it's tough for the shorter players to compete. But this is pretty average height for these guys. And to reiterate, these are the top 8, without excluding Alcaraz and Rune, the top 8 21-year-olds or younger players in the world. So these are the guys that usually play the next gen finals. Jack Draper plays with something that looks like a Dunlop FX500, which is Dunlop's power frame. I think it's probably one of their older generation models. I don't remember the name exactly. CV 3.0 or something like that. Looks more like that on the beam design, but I'm not 100% sure. But he can generate lots of power. With his height, he has a great serve, and he loves fast courts like a lot of British players. So he's going to be dangerous for the event. But he did lose his first match. I watched that yesterday against Tseng and Stricker. This was also a very powerful player, and we'll get to him later on. So that's Jack Draper. Third in the rankings is Jiri Lehecka. Sorry about my pronunciations. I'm trying to do them justice, but it's not always easy to remember exactly how everything is pronounced. But like many Czech players, very good technique. Czech has a strong tradition in tennis, and he plays very aggressive tennis, likes to move to the net. I saw him in Rotterdam when he had his breakthrough there. Really played excellent tennis. He beat Shapovalov. He beat a bunch of strong players. With his attacking tennis, he likes to get to the net. Very good hands. Plays with a Wilson 6-195 by the looks of it, with some weight added to it. So that's a pretty heavy frame and can generate lots of kind of flat through power. And then follows it up to the net. So very exciting player to watch. Probably after Draper and Musetti, the most exciting player to watch in this field. But we have some good players for sure. Next up in the rankings at 90, we have Shunzin Zheng. Trying to get that right. But he is a player from Taiwan. Plays more defensively, I would say. Uses a pure arrow. Older generation to 2016, I would guess. It could be extended. Looks like that on the pictures. Because when you're a shorter player like he is, you need a little bit extra usually on the ball, especially to compete on this level. But he plays a little bit more smart tennis, clever, moving the ball around to the right zones and tries to make it awkward for the opponent. When he finds an opening, he has enough power, which you need obviously on this level to finish the point. So he's a player definitely to watch out for. It's a tricky guy to face. Then we have Dominic Stricker. 111 in the world, and not sure if you should pronounce it Striker or Stricker, and that's how it's spelled at least. He's from Switzerland, left-handed player, always tough to play lefties. The balls come to you from a different angle, and you hit what you think is to the backhand, and you get a forehand winner against you. So it's always tricky with lefties. He's the lefty in the field. He has huge power on both wings, plays quite aggressively as well, also a fun, explosive player. And I saw his match against Draper yesterday where he won in 3 sets. They were tight sets, but still it was a very impressive performance, and he played really well on all the key points, I would say, while Draper was kind of the opposite. But that was yesterday. We'll see how the tournament evolves, but he is a strong talent, plays with a head speed, pro. Similar, I would say, looks like the same generation as Yannick Sinner, but he adds weight at the top of the hoop instead of on the sides. No idea about the specs. If I find out, I will obviously publish on tennisnerd.net or here. But this is what I can tell from seeing the pictures. But he's an explosive guy and quite fun to watch as well. I forgot Brandon Nakashima. He is ranked 49. I try to do it by rankings, but he is obviously a very strong player. He already has a title from San Diego this year, so he's already on the board in terms of titles. 49 in the world. Solid game, nothing really spectacular in terms of ball striking, but just overall, it's hard to see any weaknesses. And it's kind of common with these guys. They are so well put together as players. They are, not really showing any huge issues with playing volleys or drop shots, or they have everything pretty much and can really generate lots of pace of both wings. Otherwise, you can't even compete today, it seems like, at least. And Nakashima is one of those players, very talented, knows what to do with the ball, knows how to make it awkward for the opponent. Kind of a versatile player who can play more aggressively, but also more passively if the situation requires. So he's also definitely one of the strongest players, judging by rankings, and also that title should make him more experienced than some of the other players in this field. Nakashima uses the pure strike. I would say it's the generation before Gen 3, so that very popular Generation 2 when they really made a huge marketing thing. Last but not least, we have 2 more Italians. So this is a field of 3 Italians. And that's not just because it's at home in Milan. It's also because Italian tennis is doing exceptionally well. We talked about it in one of our podcast episodes, how they have really, so many tournaments, so many opportunities to compete. It shows that is important to have these tournaments locally, and the players grow in strength, and Italian tennis is in fantastic shape. Obviously, they have the next gen finals, they have the ATP finals in Turin. Politically, they're doing well with the chairman and the vice chairman being Italians in the ATP. So Italian tennis is on the rise. And these players are 2 more examples. Both use some form of radical. I know that the head radical is popular. Usually the graphene first edition. I think it's TGT 307 for you guys who follow pro stock codes. And that version seems to be very popular among pros. I'm not sure that is the racket they're using. That's just a guess. And maybe if you zoom in, you can find out more, or if you know these players. But And the Radical is very popular on this type of level. Looking at their games, they're both more comfortable on clay, I would say. That's just based on the highlights I've seen and some match play, but definitely strong players, and we'll see if they are punching bags in this event, but probably not. It will probably be hard fought. These matches are generally quite short with the format. I do like that there are 5 sets. I think that creates an interesting storyline. Someone can actually be up 2 sets to love and still come back. And the 4 games keeps the match short. It can be a bit hard on the ice when you're a tennis nerd to not see that 6-3, 6-4, that kind of typical numbers that you are so familiar with over the years. But also interesting that they're trying something new, and I think tennis needs that. And one of the things we discussed in our podcast, as I said, is the rise of pickleball in the States and the rise of paddle in Europe, how they are making huge strides and getting a lot of sponsorships and celebrities playing these sports. And how can tennis compete? I mean, tennis is a fantastic sport, 5th in the world, I think, in size. And it's doing well, but still these sports are growing like crazy. So it's obviously about finding a way to coexist, and very possibly the other sports will also be an opening to transition into tennis, and vice versa, depending on how much movement you have, or maybe if you have injuries, you can play these more lighter sports on the body, like pickleball or paddle. And if you want to go for the physical challenge and more of a kind of deep sport, you'd go for tennis. That's my more positive take. I understand people around the world are very angry about tennis courts being removed, and I've seen it in across Europe, in Malta, in Sweden, even in Spain, that they rather put in 3 paddle courts, which can generate a lot more money for the same amount of space as 1 tennis court. And with pickleball is the same thing. You can have people playing doubles pickleball and probably get like 4 courts in 1 tennis court or something like that. So yeah, it's something to discuss, whether it's an issue or whether we should use it as an opportunity and just be happy that people are exercising and playing racket sports, and then hope in a transition and maybe a joint community that we don't hate each other. We just are happy that people are playing sports. That's just a tangent. Next Gen Finals underway, 2nd day today. Some exciting matches in the round robin stage. We get into the semifinals and finals in the weekend. And who do you think will win? I picked Musetti. Was not really an out there pick, but I think he is happy to play at home and also the most accomplished player, with some warning sign for Jack Draper and Lehecka. That's all for this one. If you need help choosing a racket, check out my racket course, The Road to the Right Racket, and where I give you loads of videos and advice and recommendations around models, strings, and whatnot. So if you're completely in the dark around rackets, I really suggest you check that one out. Have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.